For those of you who are just joining us online or are just watching the Just the Talk video, we just did a rousing rendition of September. That was the best cardio I've had in a week, which is also a confession. You might be saying to yourself, Shelley, I like Earth, Wind, and Fire as much as the next guy, but why on earth are we singing September at the Spiritual Center this morning? And here is why. Because science shows that that song makes people happy. Right? There's a lot of science behind it, actually, that songs that have a certain number of beats per minute, and of course, if Joe Mangus is playing those beats, then that doesn't hurt, my friend. Songs with certain number of beats per minute, songs in a major key, songs with certain chord progressions make people happy. Today, we're talking about the science of joy, the science of happiness. A few days ago, I kind of fell into an internet rabbit hole about the science of joy and how we can bring more joy more consciously into our lives. Some of the things are things that you already know: gratitude, the practice of gratitude, the conscious practice of gratitude actually expands your experience of joy. Nature. Walking in nature, doing things that you love, hobbies, these things all bring us joy. But there were a couple of things that surprised me. And those are the things that I want us to talk about today. And I can already hear some of y'all saying, Shelley, why are we focusing on joy at this time in history when there's so much hate being spewed? There's so much negativity out there. There's so much fear. There is so much work to do. Why would we take our precious time to focus on joy? Well, listen, my friends. When the world is dark, when forces seem arrayed against you, and when times are tough, joy is an act of resistance. Joy is an act of resistance to the status quo because joy says, I am light, and this light will shine in the dark places. Racial justice teacher and author Austin Channing Brown once said, we aren't just pursuing racial justice when we're organizing or voting or protesting or speech making or volunteering or working. We are also pursuing justice when we indulge in joy. Joy is part of our work for justice. Joy is an act of resistance. Joy is part of this pursuit for justice. And by the way, for all of us white folks in here, for every single one of us, if you have not yet read Austin Channing Brown's book, I'm Still Here, Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness, I'm Still Here, please do. Just read it. We need to be supporting our racial justice teachers now more than ever. So, I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown. Joy is an act of resistance. Joy is part of our work for justice. I can hear some others of you in the echoes of my imagination, which is a very scary place to be sometimes, Barbara. I can hear others of you saying, Shelley, what kind of la, 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 new thought, happy, happy, joy, joy stuff are you bringing us today? And I want to be really clear that we're not talking about a new thought lobotomy, where we just plug our ears and hope everything works out okay. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is accessing the joy, the freedom, the abundance, the life that is our birthright, that already exists within us and expressing it out into the world. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is not a new idea. We all have a right. We all have a right to pursue the things that bring us joy as long as those things bring no harm to others. I just want to be really clear for a second. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be happy. There's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with wanting to be a joyful presence in the world. There is nothing shallow about that. Being happy and being joyful are part of how we heal the world. The place where we get into trouble, I believe, is when we assume that happiness happens by bypassing reality, by pretending that reality isn't happening. But that's not how it works. True happiness happens when we look beyond appearances to find what's real below the surface. What do we mean by that? I think a lot of us believe, because this is what life has taught us to believe, that happiness is something that just happens to us sometimes. And sometimes it's there, and sometimes it's not. And I think, I've done a lot of thinking about this week, and I've come to the conclusion that many of us are living in a place of tension. I remember vividly what it felt like in my finances to constantly be waiting for the other shoe to drop. I remember what that felt like in intimate relationships. Of this is too good, when will the other shoe drop? Do you know that feeling that I'm talking about? Let's call that tension. Let's call that life tension, because it is a very tense place to live, because you're kind of on tender hooks, just waiting for the bottom to drop out, right? And some of us experience it in our finances. Some of us experience it in our relationships. Some of us experience it just in our relationship to life itself, and like how we get along in the world. Always waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's okay now, but will it be okay in 5 minutes? Will it be okay in 5 years? For some of us, this tension that we're talking about is so close to the surface that it very easily can explode into anxiety or panic. For some of us, we've been living in this tension for so long that we don't even know that it's there anymore. We don't even notice it. It has just become the place where our lives vibrate. I have worn glasses or contacts since the 2nd grade. I have had corrective things on my eyeballs. And during the week, I almost always wear my glasses because they're more comfortable for me. And so I have had this on my face for decades, literal decades, 40 of them to be exact. And for those of you who wear glasses, have you ever accidentally turned on the shower and gotten in the shower and forgotten to take your glasses off? Jody has. Have you ever forgotten to take off your glasses before you get in the shower because you're so comfortable with this thing that you've been living with for so long? Do you see where I'm going with this? Some of us have gotten really comfortable with our limited consciousness, our limited thinking, that tension of life. We've gotten so comfortable with it that even when we're our nakedest selves, we don't even remember that we're carrying it around. I didn't know until the water splashed on my face, and then there are giant water drops on my curtain. I was like, oh, geez, Louise. If we are too comfortable with our sorrow, with our fear, with our lack thinking, if we are too comfortable in the place that says not enough, we get to where we can't see it anymore. And that's one of the blessings of coming to spiritual community. It's one of the reasons that we do our reading and our spiritual practice, and we have relationship with people who will help us to remember, right? So, for those of us who may be experiencing this tension in some area of our lives, God knows our country is experiencing the tension of sorrow and not enough right now, right? hoping that joy finds us, hoping that freedom finds us, hoping that abundance finds us, hoping that love finds us while waiting for the other shoe to drop. Y'all, this is a very human condition, and every single one of us have been there in the past. Every single one of us. And many of us are there now. So let's take a breath. Take a breath. And take a step back. And let's look underneath that experience to the greater truth to be known. Because, y'all, the greater truth to be known is that you are a being of light. That you were brought to life by love itself, and that joy is your birthright. And we no longer need to look outside of ourselves to find joy, to find peace, to find abundance. Because every single time we do that, we are placing our power outside of ourselves. Every single time we look outside of ourselves for joy, we're giving up our power. Joy isn't something that happens to us. Hear me now. Joy isn't something that happens to us. It is an expression that we bring forward from the place of the divine within us. It starts here. Rumi has a beautiful poem called A Garden Beyond Paradise, and it opens like this. He says, everything you see has its roots in the unseen world. The forms may change, yet the essence remains the same. Every wondrous sight will vanish, every sweet word will fade, but do not be disheartened. The source they come from is eternal, growing, branching out, giving new life and new joy. So why do you weep? That source is within you, and this whole world is springing up from it. That wellspring of life, that wellspring of joy, that wellspring of hope and abundance, it is within you, and this whole world springs up from it. So how do we access that? How do we access that wellspring of joy that often seems elusive in these times? Well, in addition to the gratituding and the nature walking and the crafting and the singing and the dancing and the doing the things that we love, there's some really interesting new science out there that I want to share with you. I'm going to share particularly two things shown by science to help us to access joy. And the first one might surprise you. Y'all have heard me a couple of times talk about the Greater Good Science group out of UC Berkeley. And they have a podcast. This is actually how I first heard about them. They have a podcast called the Happiness Podcast. It's a phenomenal podcast because every one, it's about 22 minutes, and their transcripts, for those of you who, like me, are not auditory learners, they're just 22-minute podcasts, and each one has a different scientifically backed way to access joy. The Science of Happiness podcast. And the one that they just put out was so surprising to me. There's something that they called the Micropractice of SelfCompassion. The micro-practice of self-compassion. The reason it's a micro-practice is because it takes 20 seconds. 20 seconds to connect with your true nature and to give yourself compassion. New research shows that something as simple as placing a gentle hand on your heart while focusing on warmth and care for yourself can make you feel more self-compassionate. UC Berkeley researcher Eli Sussman said, among those who practice self-compassionate touch daily, we found greater increases in self-compassion and greater reductions in mental health problems and stress. Y'all, stress is such a barrier to our joy. Stress is such a barrier to our self-care. 20 seconds to bring reductions in mental health problems and stress. His new study gives participants evidence-based tools for forming habits. So here's the deal. You do the practice for 20 seconds once a day. If you're going to be really fancy, do it 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, what is that, a minute? Everybody's got a minute. I've got more than that at the stoplight outside of the kids' schools every day. Oh, the school line, the car line. What if I turned the school car line into an opportunity to offer myself some self-compassion, Brian? We'll talk next week. So evidence-based tools for forming habits. The thing with any practice, whether it's a micro practice or a macro practice, is its regularity. So this practice that's backed by science that I'm telling you about was shown to be more effective when it was done regularly. The way that we make a habit regular comes down to 3 main things. One is make it specific. So you can have a journal practice every day, or you can have a set of journal questions that you answer every day. Having a specific practice will help you to make it more of a habit. Number 2, remember what's rewarding about the habit. When I quit smoking, when I was pregnant with my first child, I just quit cold turkey, and the reward was my baby. It was easy. I had no problems with it. Every time I wanted a cigarette, I took a deep breath and went, here's some oxygen, little baby. Remember what's rewarding. Remember what's rewarding about the habit that you're trying to form. And number 3, pick a cue. So I've been playing with this self-compassion micro-practice this week, and my cue, there's a long hallway when I'm on my way to my desk. And so every time I have been walking down that hallway towards my desk, I have stopped at the window and done one of the self-compassion techniques. That's all. That was my cue. That hallway was my cue. Some people that I read about in this study, their cue was brushing their teeth. They combined brushing their teeth, which was already a regular habit for them, with doing a self-compassion practice. Your cue can be a red light. The thing that I'm trying to point out here is that the cue is not feeling so stressed. You think the top of your head is going to pop off? That's not the time for this particular practice. We have other practices for that. This practice is a preventative practice, if you will. It's not a reactive practice. Now, what does it look like? They actually lay out 5 different self-compassion practices. We're not going to go through all 5 today. You can find them on the Science of Happiness podcast. But I do want to show you a couple because they're amazing. And I want to be clear that when you're doing this micro practice for the purpose of self-compassion, this isn't necessarily the time for prayers and affirmations. This is the time just to love yourself, just for 20 seconds. So one of them we already talked about, just touching your heart. And if you like, you can do this with me. Y'all at home, if you like, you can do this with us. You can just touch your heart. Place both hands gently over the center of your chest, one on top of the other. Apply just enough pressure to feel connected but not uncomfortable. And focus on the warmth of your touch. This is you just giving to you, not bleeding yourself dry to give to somebody else, right? This is just you having a moment of compassion for yourself. Okay, good job. I think this next one is my favorite. This is called Cradle Your Face. Gently cup each of your cheeks with your hands, holding your face as you would a loved one in distress, and just let the touch be soft and caring. Oh, when was the last time someone held you like that? And what a gift that we can be that for ourselves. Okay, I'm just going to share one more because this is too much fun. Okay, I'm just going to do one more. This is called Feel Your Strength. And I think this one is really important. If it feels right, make a gentle fist with your left hand, symbolizing strength, and place it over your heart. Rest your right hand on top of the fist to combine the feelings of strength and love. It feels different, doesn't it? I wonder why that is. That an act of compassion can be acknowledging my strength and my love that I have for myself. 20 seconds a day, 20 seconds a day, y'all. I encourage you to play with it. And I'll just finish this with this. The micropractice of compassion has been shown to improve physical and mental health outcomes when practiced regularly, because self-compassion is one of those acts of resistance that lead to joy. I don't know about you, but I was raised in a culture that was very much oriented towards, well, I'll just say it, my father. He had the power and the authority. You know, if my mom wanted to dye her hair, it was, John, can I dye my hair? You know, I'll never ask you that question. But because of that, and for some of you, it might not have been your father. For some of you, it might have been a mother figure. For some of you, it might have been a principal. For some of you, it might have been a priest. I don't know what your figure of authority was, but in the culture that I was raised in, it very much was the father was the head of the household, and so that is where power lies. That is where authority lies. And so very early on, I learned to orient my attention here. Because my safety, my love, my everything, compassion, I had a lot of compassion from my father. All of it came from out here. So if you were raised in a culture that oriented power and all the good things out here, spoiler alert, you did. And if you don't think you did, read Austin Channing Brown's book, please. For all of us, we have to learn that compassion, love, joy, freedom, abundance, it will never come from out here. We are looking to false gods when we're looking here. All of it happens here. And so what a joy, what a gift to take 20 seconds to experience that for ourselves. I really like the strength and compassion one, right? Very interesting. So you can find all of those practices and more on the Science of Happiness podcast website. Okay, now I'm just going to share one more thing with you. The other thing that surprised me this week in the amount of science that is behind it, the other practice for bringing joy into our lives, a greater experience of joy. And I don't think this is going to surprise you. It didn't surprise me, but the amount of science backing it surprised me. In order to experience joy, we give it away. In order to experience joy, we give it away. Again and again, science shows that the way to build happiness is literally to give it away, to help others. This can be everything from giving to a charity that you care about to putting away someone's grocery cart. Science has shown that the grocery cart putter-awayers are happier people. Who knew? But these small acts of kindness literally bring you joy, and here's why. Our beloved Reverend Noel McGinnis taught me years ago, what you're looking for, you're looking with. And I thought, what you talking about, Doc? I did not really understand what he meant by that. I thought, that is a nice new thought saying. What do you mean? What you're looking for, you're looking with. If you're looking for joy, You're looking with joy in you. And until you locate joy in you, joy is going to come very haphazardly. It's going to be really hard to find. I speak from experience. Always looking outside of myself to fulfill something that was never going to come because I had forgotten that wellspring of source is already mine. It is already within me. If I am looking for love, my job is to be loving. If I am looking for joy, my job is to give it away. Y'all, Taylor Swift this week at the VMAs, she said the cutest thing. She thanked her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, who's a sport ball player, I hear. And she said, I want to thank him for bringing magic and happiness and joy everywhere he goes. And I thought, I want to be a magic bringer. What if we bring the joy instead of looking for the joy? What if we bring the love instead of looking for the love? What if we bring our sense of justice and rightness and holiness instead of looking for something out here that we will never find because it doesn't exist, because it's all in the wellspring of the source of the divine within each of us? Yeah. So this month, sorry, I am shedding. This month is our birthday. In TCSL Works, we are having our 20th birthday this month. And so I was thinking this week how grateful I am for all of us that have built this experience through finding something within us and sharing it. Some of us have shared our financial goods. Some of us have shared our decorating. Y'all just wait till the holidays if you're new. Just wait. Some of us build community by making sure that we have coffee and yummy and healthy things to eat together because we are a food-loving people. Some of us build community by showing up to, like our beautiful board of trustees, showing up to build structure and health around the business of our finances as a nonprofit. Some of us build community by showing up as just a kind and loving face at the door, you know. Brian builds community by building us a awesome band. Yikes. I'm sorry, Reverend Shannon. Reverend Shannon builds community by showing up again and again and again as love for all of us, right? So for all of you who walk the walk and not just talk the talk of doing this thing, and who have shown up as the givers in whatever way you have been able to give, I just want to say thank you. Those of you online who show up as part of our community in our chat box, and I know you're here in person when you can be, you help to build community by showing up. We build joy in the world by showing up as joy. And we can do this everywhere, not just in this beautiful, safe space, right? We can take that joy to the world. We can be the grocery shop cart returners. That made sense in my head, but not as it came out. We can bring joy to our postcard party, reminding people of how important it is to vote. We can bring joy to everything that we do because we are the light bringers. We are the change makers. We are the difference makers. And I truly believe that when we show up as joy, when we show up as love, as we show up as light, that is how we become the hands of God, the eyes of God, the heart of God, the feet that walks divinity on this planet. It's by showing up with joy.